Stage 23 Tour de France contains 4 cat sprints and 4 minor climbs, taking the Tour from Saint-Julien-en-Genoa to Dijon, a racing distance of 224.5 kilometres, 140 miles. Now, just again a reminder, as if you needed it, that the battle on general classification appears now to be between 2 riders, both 27-year-olds, Spaniard Pedro Delgado, the Irishman Stephen Roche. Now with me on commentary today, Seamus O'Hanlon, 4 times winner of Ross Tailteann, in which race he won 26 stages, and indeed in one of his winning years, but one of the years that Shea rode the Ross. The boy who won it, and boy he was at the time, was Stephen Roche. The last word we had was that Roche, well in touch, nothing serious expected to happen today, but you never know and you cannot count. Another cast man there is Alfred Ackermann, a Swiss. So they are the 8 away. So Stephen Roche in the green jersey is just 7 points ahead of Van Poppel on that. Number 52 from PDM is Jerry Knetemann, the former world champion. Number 154 is Henk Lubberding with the long flowing locks. Well, these fellas may be looking for a piece of stage glory, and to win a stage at Tour de France is a great achievement for anybody, but they're of no real danger to the overall itself, Shay.
But Jimmy, these men can influence the overall result, because if the 7 of them stay away, it means that they take the points for the green jersey points classification. And Stephen at the moment, as we know, is leading that, with Van Poppel breathing down his neck. Now, if these 7 men take the major points at the stage finish, it helps Stephen to hold his position in the green jersey.
2 Panasonics in this octet. Henk Lubberding, number 154, and Eric Van Lanker, 158. Also in there, Jerry Knetemann, the former world champion, as we come back to the main field again, the main bunch. Just look out for the yellow jersey. The 131 polka dot, Luis Herrera, acknowledged as the world's greatest climber. This isn't quite his forte, this, but he should be able to hang in. No problem today. But interesting that in the mountains, with his great reputation, he couldn't shake off Stephen Roche. So if Herrera is the number 1 in the world, where does that leave Roche? You might be able to pick out the yellow jersey, and indeed in the green jersey. The yellow is just left of your picture, hugging the right of the road there. And the green, not far away. They're never far away from each other. 2 very easy colours, I think. Although sometimes you may very well get confused with the Del Tongo uniform, which is basically yellow. Cass normally is, but Cass is now blue and yellow for the Tour de France. There's no doubt, Shea O'Hanlon, they've stepped up the rate considerably as we watch Stephen Roche in the green points leaders jersey, a jersey that's been worn so often by Sean Kelly in Tour de France, and here we have another Irishman wearing it. Now that signifies and denotes consistency in finishing places right over the Tour, and it's a very important jersey, only marginally inferior to the yellow itself.
Yes, but I think it's a great tribute to Stephen that he's wearing this jersey, because we see people like Van Poppel, who wore it for a lot of the race, who are there in the big bunch finishes, and they've always been well placed. But Stephen has got this jersey not by sprint finishes out of bunches, but by good plain riding every day, consistency being there on the mountains, in the flat, everywhere. Stephen is there, and he's probably one of the most complete green jersey wearers we've seen for many years, with all due respects to Sean Kelly, of course.
Back with the breakaway. Not every time we see it, in fact. We see 52 Jerry Knetemann at the back, so clearly Jerry has no intention of working. We've just lost Jerry for a moment there, but he's obviously not going to do too much about it, Shay.
No, he'll bide his time. Nobody is arguing with him. They're leaving him there, and he will just hold that position and try to gain from it.
Green versus yellow. There you can see them, centre of your picture, the green jersey of Stephen Roche, and just on his right shoulder, Pedro Delgado. Delgado just gone a bike length in front now and certainly nothing's going to happen between those two today. So it'll be all in the time trial tomorrow. And I think rather yesterday, Seamus O'Hanlon, Delgado waved the white flag at the end of that last mountain stage into Morzine when he said, well, 21 seconds is not good enough.
I think he did. Delgado rode a very good race, but Stephen was very lucky that he had Eddie Shapers with him, and Shapers kept the speed high on the hill to make it difficult for Delgado to attack if he was capable for it. And we saw Delgado, he did make the gesture, he did make one attack that very quickly came to nothing because Roach and Shapers swept him up in no time at all, and Roach attacked climbing and then really put in the final attack coming down the hill to the finish, and Delgado just couldn't match that. We saw the two of them with nobody between them. Delgado could see Roach up the road but could do nothing about it and couldn't close that 18-second gap.
In contrast to the day before, when Roach saw Delgado up the road and really went into blinkers and looked at the yellow jersey and looked at that back wheel and said, here I go. He probably pushed himself at to or near the limit, but just had a deficit of 4 seconds on that stage. And if he wins the Tour, that for me, Shea O'Hanlon, is the day that Stephen Roach won it. Just at the moment, 1:21 is the gap now, with less than 15 miles to go between the peloton and this breakaway group. Anyway, back to that reference I made there. If he wins it, it's probably that climb to La Plana.
I agree. I think that was a tremendous ride by Stephen because he was there. He could see Delgado up the road. He knew Delgado was a super climber, and it would be understandable if he said, now I've lost the Tour. And if he just eased up that 1% that would have left him losing time to Delgado. But instead of that, he took the bit between his teeth. He fought, and inch by inch, and it had to be inch by inch up that mountain. He pulled Delgado back and cut his losses right back to 4 seconds. And that's the sort of courage that we very seldom see. That's the sort of riding that wins a race like the Tour de France.
Jerry Knetemann, 52, and every time we see him, Shay, there's no sign of any work out of Jerry. He's been glad of the tow along. He's the oldest man in the 1987 Tour de France, but of course 36 is young. The 8 men in the group again: Jean-Claude Leclerc, Frederick Brun, Jerry Knetemann, Regis Clare, Alfred Ackermann, Eric Van Lanker, Henk Lumperdinck and Rudy Patre. They are the 8 away, 1:21 and increasing.
Yes, and the riders are there. They're totally ignoring Knetemann, which is strange. They accept that he'll sit there. They know that he's a dangerous man at the finish, but they are determined to press ahead to the finish and fight between themselves then for a stage win.
As we say, in the last 14 miles now, the run into Dijon, where they will stay in fact tomorrow for that time trial. Jean-Francois Bernard we see there, talking to one of the Vega boys, talking there to Jean-René Bernadoux, it looks like.
Yes, but nobody looks terribly worried about that group ahead, Jimmy. They're there. They're not going slow, they're riding fast, but at a steady speed, but not like a group who are determined to bring back the group ahead.
That's for sure. It looks like they're making appointments to meet this evening in some cafe at Dijon. They certainly don't look to be in any distress, and for them it merely is a spin in the sun. That's Laurent Fignon, all right. The unmistakable headband of Fignon just behind the blue-clad figure there, and about 3 from the right of your picture. I just saw a quick glimpse of Robert Miller as well. And if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the left, Stephen Roach in the green jersey. And hugging the right-hand side of the road, Robert Delgado in the yellow jersey. They are the two principals, of course, as we well know by now, in the 1987 Tour de France. Is Roach on his way to becoming only the 5th man in history to win the Giro d'Italia and Tour de France in the same year? Well documented by now that only Foster Coppi, Jacques Anquetil, Eddie Merckx and Bernard Hinault have accomplished that truly remarkable feat in 2 races that have been going on almost since the beginning of the century. Tour de France 1903 and 6 years later Tour of Italy. It will be a remarkable performance by Roach if he does it, and he's got to be odds on now. As you can see, the gap is now stretched to 2 minutes 21 seconds for the peloton that includes the yellow and the green jersey Delgado and Roach, and the breakaway 8. 14 kilometres to go, and it looks now as though the stage winners between these 7 who've increased their momentum and there's one of them gone. I'm trying to count them here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Where's Jerry? Jerry Knetemann is not there unless he's just not in that tight frame of the shot we're seeing. Number 7 we are seeing is Jean-Claude Leclerc. Jean-Claude Leclerc from the Toshiba Look team. He's been prominent. We've seen him a lot of the days and a lot of the stages. Now there are a couple of national jerseys there. One of them, Kim Anderson, the national champion of Denmark, and Audrey van der Poel from the PDM team, who's the national champion of Holland, just a few weeks before this indeed tour started. So there's a lot of national champions, stage winners, national tour winners in this main bunch as they try and chase down the time. But the main issue of the tour, the issue itself that is all so important, is the one who's going to win GC, because the GC winner is the Tour de France winner, and there's the leader in that particular category, Pedro Delgado, this remarkably fine Spanish rider who has given more than enough to this tour. Born in Segovia, he won a stage last year, he's won a stage this year, he won the Tour of Spain in 1985, and I've got to say that in many ways he has been the making of this tour, because when his morale must have been down, unable to shake off Roach over those 2 days, he showed what courage, what fight's about, and proved once again, Shay, you must never ever give up. He's been a star.
The race is never over until you've climbed off your bicycle after the finish, and this is the quality that a winner must have. He must know that no matter how bad things look, that he can fight back, that he has the ability to fight back, and he will fight back. And without that, he has no chance of winning.
Jerry Knetemann is in this octet. He was just back talking to his team car, or the director sportif in the team car. In fact, there he is. And somebody else from the Roland Scala team 205 is Rudy Patry. He's having a chat as well. Now these are the times when the instructors will be going out. There's how far he's behind on GC, so as you can see, he's no danger. 117th today. But there's many a man will live on the reward and renown of getting a stage win in Tour de France. It's got to be a famous thing to do, and it looks now, Shay, between these 7 for it. Of the 7, when you look through them, the experience of Knetemann, despite his age, he just might be the man to sneak it.
I think Knetemann will use his experience and could win this stage. He has to be watched. He's a great sprint finisher, and I wouldn't like to have him behind me if I was 20 years younger and as good as some of those fellas.
The green jersey battle is between Roach and Van Poppel. Roach wearing it today. Number 7 here again. We see Jean-Claude Leclerc, 53rd on GC, 1 hour 53 and a bit behind. The cast man is Alfred Ackermann, faithful servant of Sean Kelly. Actually, that cast team lost a few men indeed before they lost Kelly himself. 32 there is Frederick Brun from the Z Peugeot team, who's Duclos LaSalle, number 34, back in the bunch, is the leader in the Cat Sprints Red Jersey Brigade. And there are 4 Cat Sprints on today's run.
And the team managers are coming up now giving instructions to their riders, and if you watch their faces and watch their hand gestures, there are none of them saying take it easy, wait for the bunch. They're all exhorting them to go for the stage. So who's going to take the stage? Nothing I can tell you of any importance is happening back in the main bunch. They're all pretty much together. Nothing was expected to happen today, and they're living up to the expectations because it's all down to tomorrow. I think most of the men, Shay, in the peloton would agree that Roach is the best time trialist around of those in serious contention, and whilst they're not exactly waving the white flag, I think they're resigned to it now. I think it would seem from Delgado's reaction yesterday that he might have waved the white flag, but on the other hand, tomorrow he'll sit there, he'll be with the starter, he'll get the call 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and at that stage he is to decide, is he going to make one last tremendous throw to hold this jersey on his back, to make sure that he does win the jersey, that he does win the race. But it may be that when he gets the starter's call, he won't have the morale, and he won't make that total all-out effort that he will have to do to hold off Stephen.
I think it's fair to emphasise at this stage, as we look at Delgado, the race leader, and Roach just on his wheel, that these two are under no threat whatsoever from the breakaway group of 8, who are at various times behind on general classification. Quite simply, the winner of Tour de France is the man who does the 3 and a bit weeks in the fastest time, and those fellows are hours behind some of these, and so they're of absolutely no danger at all. The gap today is only a couple of minutes, so they'll be allowed away, and they will not have any worries whatsoever for Roach and co. Just to emphasise that, I think it's worth mentioning now.
No, really, Jimmy, Stephen and Pedro Delgado have only one another and fate to fear. There's the possibility of an accident, the possibility of bad luck, and one or the other of them will win this race if everything goes right for two of them.
Yeah, and in fact, they're very wise not to be involved in a big finish today at all, because at the speeds that some of these boys will be going, perhaps recklessly for a stage win, it's better for the principals not to be involved in it, because we saw what happened to Sean Kelly in this. We've seen an accident already in this tour when a man went into the barrier, so anything can happen. As we look now at Frederick Brun, and bit with him there is Rudy Patre, and in fact they're working pretty well together, most of them anyway, except our aforementioned pal Jerry Knetemann. That's Eric Van Lancker there at the team car, the Panasonic team car. 2 Panasonics in these 8. What's the instructions? The other Panasonic man is Henk Lubberdink. 158 is Van Lancker, 154 is Lubberdink. This man in the CAS uniform is Alfred Ackermann. Just ahead of him, Jerry Knetemann. Number 32, Frederick Brun. Number 205, Rudy Patre. And then we move up to number 7 there, Jean-Claude Leclerc. So they're merely going for a race win today. It's 3:04 from the peloton to the lead, the breakaway 8. But no danger to Roach and Delgado. Absolutely none. Inside the last 5 kilometres. They're pretty well working together now, these 8 riders, and in fact we saw earlier on there Henk Lubberdink go back behind Jerry Knetemann, which was almost giving a red face to Jerry and actually forcing him to do some work. And since then, all 8 have been doing bit and bit, and it looks as if they're about doing 70-metre relays, Shane.
They are doing about that, but at this stage of the race they're beginning to wonder, and there's the first break in it. They've cooperated so long, and then attack.
That's Rudy Patre, who seems to have attacked. And it's Alfred Ackermann who has responded. Behind him is Brun. They are the first 3. The man number 7 here being left is Jean-Claude Leclerc.
But the two of them are gone clear. No, there's a move after them.
Patre and Ackermann are the 2 away. Ackermann responded very quickly. He's taken the wheel of Patre. It was a brave attack by Patre. Number 85 trying to get onto them here is Regis Clare, but it's all brought back. An attack worthwhile perhaps it seemed at the time, as we see 3 Ks to go. Back together again.
Yes, but somebody is going to go again. They're slowing down now. Each one is watching the others, watching to who's going to make the attack and watching for his own chance to attack.
Van Lankert's thinking about it. That's Jerry Knetemann forced to lead it for the moment. Van Lancker is looks left. This looks like an attack, Seamus, from Van Lancker.
No, he's not going to go yet. He's watching to see what somebody else will do.
Regis Clare is the man who's come up and just passed Jerry Knetemann. Alfred Ackermann slipping into the picture now.
They're all there. They want to go to the front. They want to keep the group moving, but when they're at the front...
And Patre tries again. Rudy Patre tries one more time. I was just about to say it'll come from 20 metres back, that attack, if at all. But the echelon right across the road and getting back on his wheel again. Another one bites the dust.
Yes, and Panasonic are having a nice little time in there.
2 Panasonics, remember. 1 PDM, 1 from Zed Puggio, and we have the CAS man there as well.
Another attack there. Lubberdink is gone.
Henk Lubberdink, the Flowing Locks. A man would be fancied by many out of these 8 to take the stage. But again, every attack is being countered. It's very watchful. In fact, there's a great degree of concentration here.
Yes, let's see will Knetemann try.
32 at the back for the moment is Frederick Brun.
Another attack. No.
Well, it's attack after attack, all little mini battles within the major war for this stage, this very important stage. Regis Clare thinks about it. Regis Clare from the Z Peugeot team.
But there's no doubt, Jimmy, that the man who keeps his cool while they all attack, the man who keeps his cool and saves his energy could sweep away with this stage. And Kinetaman has sat there very coolly, hasn't closed any gaps, hasn't tried to open any gaps. And while the others pull and drag with one another, he could be just building up a nice position to win this stage.
They are in Dijon, and there's an attack this time from Frederick Brun. But just as he was thinking about it, just ahead of him, it was Rudy Patre again trying to go. Quite an amazing finish to this stage. Some really terrific cycling, and it's a cat and mouse game, but the biggest cat of all is Jerry Kinetaman. And as you say, Shay, he hasn't closed any, he hasn't made any, but he's still there.
He might just make that gap at the finish. There we are, 950 metres to go from the kilometre flag. That's because it's around the corner and it's 50 metres shorter this time.
It's Brun ahead, Kinetaman, Lubberdink, and 85 is Regis Clare. Regis Clare trying it, a classic attack actually
and
coming from there.
Nobody's chasing him.
Nobody's chasing, he came from about 20 metres behind. The chase is not on, and Regis Clare inside the last kilometre is going for stage victory. Now the stage finish camera is right on him, and we'll be able to see it. That foreshortens it, but it's Regis Clare going for the Tour victory. Regis Clare going to take it to be the 22nd different stage winner in the 1987 Tour.
A tremendous win, Jimmy.
His second stage win in this Tour de France. He won on the 16th of July, and he wins again on the 24th of July. Regis Clare has won the stage. There's a good battle behind him for second place, and it looks as though it was Jerry Kinetaman was up there second or third, certainly.
I think he may have been, but that's two stages in a row, because yesterday Regis Clare's teammate Chosas won the stage.
A pair of stages for the Teka boys. And we're looking here at number 2, Kim Anderson, Toshiba Luck team, but he's wearing the national jersey as champion of Denmark. And we may remember back to Killarney last year in the Nissan International Classic. He was stage winner to there, and I'll always remember him coming down into Killarney, down that descent at a speed that frightened just about everybody, including Phil Anderson. So here's the main bunch, and Super Convicts are absolutely assembling at the front. And remember, Jean-Paul Van Poppel is their man, and he looks and wants that green jersey back. I know he's got one in his team uniform. I'm talking about the green jersey.
Yes, but he has a chance now of getting 17 points. There are 17 points for the winner of this bunch sprint, and if he can win this sprint, he will unfortunately snatch the jersey from Stephen.
Not, I should imagine, that Stephen would be too worried about the jersey. It would be nice to have it, but he has his heart set on one of a different colour, and there's the one he has today, the green. Just on his left, just diagonally across, you saw the yellow jersey of Pedro Delgado. This is the main bunch. 8 cyclists have finished, and the next man in will be 9th. And
Stephen Roche and Pedro Delgado staying up near the front of this group, trying to, on the twisting roads to the finish, they don't want to get caught in any trouble, get caught behind any crashes, and they're staying up near the front, out of trouble. Stephen there in 5th position at the moment.
There's Stephen, as you say, just in 5th position in this particular bunch.
You know, if he stays in that position, it could be that Van Poppel won't get enough points on him to take the green jersey.
Super Convicts is the team at the front. They had some very good men, Goltz, De Croo, Niedam, Solivel, Verhoeven, some very good men starting out this tour. A tour that started in Berlin, West Berlin, with 207 riders, is down now to less than 150, as here comes the main bunch into the finish. There'll be no change on general classification. It'll all be down to the time trial here at Dijon tomorrow. Super Convicts trying to go for this. It's Van Poppel is up there near the front. And back now to the Finnish camera. Van Poppel coming through. Looks like Van Poppel trying to get as many points as he can on this stage. Jean-Paul Van Poppel, it looks to me like Jean-Paul Van Poppel, but Roach was about fifth in that lot. The yellow jersey just behind him, same time for everybody. As we rather thought, there'd be no change on general classification. I think that'll be confirmed later on as we watch the yellow of Pedro Delgado. And now he knows surely that with the time trial to come tomorrow, he'll need a bit of that motorised stuff that we saw earlier on at the beginning of this transmission.
Well, Jimmy, we can all breathe a sigh of relief. Stephen is there. He's got through the dangers of today, the possibilities of bad luck, and he's safe to come out tomorrow. And tomorrow we hope will show just what a great rider he is and take that yellow jersey, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, that's the scene in Dijon. Another day on the Tour. The stage won by Regis Clare, his second stage win on this particular Tour. Only one other man has won two, that's Van Poppel, whom we saw win the bunch sprint. The Clerc second, Ackermann third, Jerry Knetemann was fourth, Lubberdink, and then Van Lanker. They were the top six. There were two others in that. Stephen Roach comfortably in, just ahead of Pedro Delgado. No change in general classification, and so it's all to that nail-biting time trial tomorrow in Dijon. A time trial of 38 kilometres, when Roach should, on all known form, be faster than Delgado. If he is, well, then it'll be a celebration run into Paris on Sunday to become the first Irishman to win the Tour de France. And there it is, the general classification. Pedro Delgado, 109 hours and a bit of the saddle, and Stephen Roach, after all those miles and time, just 21 seconds adrift. As we leave you now, let me remind you, Regis Clare won the stage today. Van Poppel won the bunch sprint in. No change on general classification. We'll be back live on the air at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon within the Sports Stadium programme. The machine against conditions and clock. The graphic shows that indeed there is a hill or two on it, but nothing of any great, mere pimples to these fellows after the week in the Alps. And here are the two principals, Stephen Roach, Pedro Delgado. Duel, they're calling it on Eurovision, and that's precisely what it is. 207 men began this 1987 Tour de France, and now it's down, or appears to be down, to just two. Delgado 21 seconds ahead. Jean-Francois Bernard at 4 minutes 18 is third, and Charlie Motet at 5 minutes 54 is fourth. Best time posted so far is 50 minutes 47 seconds by a Dane called Jesper Skibby from the Roland Scala team. So that gives you an idea of the sort of times that may be aimed at today. 50:47. As you can see from those still pictures coming from the top, there's confirmation of what I told you. Indurain at 50:52 is the next best time, and then Stefan Hagen, the Dutchman, 25 seconds inferior to Skibby's time. But as you can see, there's no shadows being cast today, overcast conditions, and indeed a great threat of rain, Joe Hanlon, and that could put a new dimension on the entire thing.
Yes, the weather report this morning, Jimmy, from Dijon is that the heat is very intense. It's a very humid day, and there is a fear that by the time Delgado and Roach hit the road, that there's a possibility of thunderstorms. And from our point of view, we should be concerned about the fact that this might be more into the barrow of the Spaniard, coming from his warm country, than it would be into Roach's barrow. But I think that Roach can do it just the same.
Well, we're coming down to the time now shortly when we shall see Stephen Roach. Before that, from the Toshiba Look team, Jean-Francois Bernard, a man who back on the 19th of July went into the yellow jersey on the Tour de France on the day he won his stage there. So much responsibility on that young man. 4,200 kilometres is the race distance of the 1987 Tour de France. There's only 230 kilometres left. About 150 miles after the one of the most memorable and eventful tours in history. There have been great stories of heroism in the past when the likes of Eddie Merckx and those were at the heyday, and Coppi and Bobby and Anquetil. But I think, Shea, when we get maybe 10 years away from where we are now. They'll be looking back on 87 as one of the great ones.
I think that Stephen Roche has come this year, and he, together with Delgado, has given us one of the greatest duels we've seen in Tour de France since the war. It is, to me, it reminds me of the battle between Federico Bahamontes, another Spaniard, and Jacques Anquetil in the early 60s, where the two of them fought it out over the last week of the race, with only seconds separating them, with Bahamontes, the strong man in the mountains, and with Anquetil determined to hold on to him to the finish, to win by the time trial.
Reminding Seamus O'Hanlon of that, in the start house, it's Stephen Roche. 21 seconds behind on general classification. Stephen Roche from Dublin, Ireland, 27 years old. Stage winner Tour de France on the Obisque in 1985. Stage winner again in 1987. Best time so far, just as a kind of benchmark, 50 minutes 47 seconds. Robert Miller is the man in the picture. Interestingly enough, they don't appear to have a mobile camera on this particular time trial stage today. And we're watching Miller checking it down to 52.29, so he's 16th at the moment. But Robert Miller's chances, of course, long since gone of ultimate victory in the Tour de France. But we're a very tense face of Stephen Roche. In fact, when we're used to seeing Stephen Shea, the smiling face of the young Irishman, always seems affable, always in good humour, there really is tension etched on that face at the moment.
But Jimmy, there can be nothing worse than to be sitting here in this position, waiting for the timekeeper's signal. He has 3 minutes from the time the last rider left. He's to sit here, he can do nothing. He knows he has to gather his thoughts together. He has to concentrate for 50 minutes and ride as fast as ever he can, and yet spread his energy over the whole distance of the stage. And now he can do nothing but wait for the signal.
Concentration and prayer. Sheer concentration a prerequisite, there's no doubt about that. Rhythm so important as well. Stephen Roche, 21 seconds from the yellow jersey of Delgado. On all known form, he should be faster than the Spaniard on a time trial. I have never, ever seen Stephen so tense. Just for the moment, Stephen Roche on the countdown. Electricity in the air here as Stephen Roche. And Stephen Roche is off 38 kilometres in and around Dijon. So the most important time trial of his life. No doubt about that. And he's ridden many great ones. Now, one of the things they've got to make up their mind about is what way do you go? Do you go for a fast start? Do you go for an even rhythm? Or do you try and keep something for the end, Shay?
Jimmy, in today's stage, it's 38 kilometres, which is just 24 miles. And a little over halfway through the stage, after 20 kilometres, Stephen will hit quite a hard hill, the Côte Val Souzon. And it's a rise of 550 feet in 2 kilometres. Now he has got to spread his energy. The road rises up steadily to the foot of that hill. It then steepens up considerably. There's a short flat across the top, and then it drops back down to the finish in Dijon. And on the way there's one short rise, but he has got to ration his energy. He has got to go as fast as he can on the flat, but save a little bit for the hill. Now the interesting thing today is that this is a roundabout course, so it won't be tailwind all the way, it won't be headwind all the way. At different stages of the day he'll have the wind from a different direction.
So the psychological approach, I suppose, Seamus O'Hanlon, the most important thing here for Stephen, as we look at the man in the start house with the PDM headband, and that's Pedro Delgado, yellow jersey, the great Spaniard who gave us so many memorable moments in this particular tour. Now Roche was out of the saddle getting his rhythm. He appears to have got that now. And a word about these low profile bicycles, the disc wheel in the back and the whole style of Stephen Roche. He really is made for a cycling machine.
Jimmy, it's great to look at Stephen. As you said the other night, he looks as if somebody bought him with the bicycle. He's sitting there, the legs are pumping away, the body hardly moves. All the energy is put into making that bike go forward. But you must remember that inside it, his mind is concentrated on it, on what he's doing. His legs will be burning later in the day. He'll be at the extremity of his energy, but he'll always be there rock steady. And Delgado now is sitting here in the same position that Stephen was before. He can do no more but wait for the timekeeper to give him the signal, and then it will be up to him. Can he hold that yellow jersey? I hope he can.
His fourth yellow jersey of this 87 Tour. He won the Tour of Spain in 85. He's had stage wins in the Tour de France 85, 86 and 87. And he was fourth in the Vuelta de España this year. You're looking at a very, very good man indeed. And off he goes. Pedro Delgado in pursuit of Stephen Roche in the battle against the clock. The race the Belgians call the race of truth, and never was any race more aptly named. Denis Roux is the man we're looking at now coming in. But these men are all way down on GC, and Jesper Skibby's time is the one that's going to survive for a long bit more, it would appear to me. Jesper Skibby from the Roland Scala team at Dane. Roux has a look at his time, but it won't be any better than 49th on the day in the time trial. Well, the two big men are on the road. Here's Stephen Roche. After that operation last November, that knee surgery, a knee problem that gave him such a dismal 1986, has obviously been a roaring success. And Roche has gone on in 87 to win the Giro d'Italia. That was the big one, but as well as that, he won the Tour of Valencia, he won Tour of Romandy for the third time, he was second Liège, Bastogne Liège, and here's Pedro Delgado, like Roche, a 27-year-old. What a battle it is on the road. They're not side by side for the simple reason, in case you've just joined us, it's a time trial, but what a battle, and really it is a head-to-head for the biggest prize in all of professional cycling, the Tour de France itself. Delgado has not got the time trial talent of Roche, but all of these things are relative. That's only because Roche is exceptional, but Delgado could get as close as a minute and a half to him, maybe even closer. It depends on the form, the thinking, the concentration on the day in question. Seamus O'Hanlon.
Jimmy, I'm interested in one thing that's showing up in these pictures today. This is a race that will take these riders somewhat under 50 minutes to complete. And I see that Stephen Roche has a bottle on his bicycle. He's carrying a bottle, whereas Delgado is not. And this is a very unusual thing in such a short race, because normally a rider wouldn't have time to eat or drink. And even the fact of taking a drink on a stage like this could lose precious seconds, but obviously it's a well thought out move. It may have something to do with the weather conditions. It's simply an interesting fact that we must watch to see what happens.
There is Roche. Now, if the artist or the sculptors want a role model for the future, well, here surely is the man. If you want to do a painting or whatever of a man on a bike, because surely he is the greatest lesson to any of the young people looking in shade. This is near perfection.
I've never seen such a perfect cyclist as Stephen Roche. He sits there on the bicycle as if he was making an educational film on how to ride a bicycle. He's there, there's not a move. Look at the contrast between himself and Delgado there. You see Delgado, the back wheel swings from side to side now and again. And every little wobble like that is losing an inch or two, and if you add up enough of those in 38 kilometres, it could add up to 21 seconds.
Yes, it's a good comparison, because not that Delgado is terribly imperfect or anything like that, but there's a roll, there's a movement of the shoulder, of the head, of the backside, but for Roche there's never a movement. It truly is incredible.
No, it's as if that he had a small track put down along the road and he just followed it. There's a slight movement on his front wheel there now, but generally he's going in exactly a straight line, parallel to the white line beside the road.
Both taking the centre of the road. This was a position that was always taken in the past by the great Jacques Anquetil. Anquetil, one of the great time trialers, of course, in Tour de France history, and a 5-time winner, and one of the only 4 men, Anquetil, who have won the Giro d'Italia and Tour de France in the same year. Fausto Coppi, Anquetil, Eddie Merckx, Bernard Hinault. And if Stephen Roche can do it in 1987, he will join joined the most elite club in the history of cycling.
And Jimmy, we've just got news in that in the first kilometres, Delgado was down 5 seconds. And look at him there. I think you can nearly see it. You can see Roche. He's doing a workman-like job. He's sitting on the bike. He's riding steadily. He's looking ahead of him. Delgado, to me, he has his head down. He's looking down at the front wheel, down at his feet. He's trying to make a harder and harder effort, but he hasn't got this relaxed sort of fluency that Stephen has. There's just more effort in him. I think we might be onto a winner today.
Yeah, he's time trialling like a mountain climber.
He is, yeah. He's racing with himself as well as the opposition.
Now, we said a lot of things about Stephen during the week. We talked about his capabilities in the mountains when on 2 of 3 days he beat the great Herrera himself. We know what he can do against the watch. We saw him on that fantastic descent the other day into Morzine. But one of the things we haven't given enough notice to, I think, is his powers of calculation. He really has a fine computer-like brain.
Well, if you look back at Stephen's career through the years, it has been a very steady progression. Certainly there has been bad luck involved in it and he has had problems, but steadily from the day he started cycling right up to now, he has proceeded level by level, step by step, always making progress. Look at Delgado there. He's looking down at the handlebars. That's not the look of a winner.
Well, already Roche is picking up time on him. That is unconfirmed, but almost certain. People have been asking us, by telephone calls, what was the narrowest winning margin. Well, the narrowest one I can find was 1968 when Jan Janssen won the Tour de France by a mere 38 seconds after Herman van Springel, the great Van Springel, looked like getting the final yellow jersey but didn't, and Janssen won it on the last day. That was the narrowest one. The nearest since then was a 48-second job just 10 years ago by Bernard Thévenet over Heini Kuiper. Now, you get some idea again of the sort of time we're looking for. Skibby has done 50.47, Jean-René Bernadeau 54.18, the 50th best of the day so far. There goes Bernadeau from the Fagor team, and again Delgado, and even as you said there, looking down at the handlebars, I think more in desperation than anything else. There's no doubt, even from the visual eye, without shade, the benefit of having a watch on them, there's no doubt that Roche is picking up. Even his leg speed alone is clearly faster than that of Delgado.
Jimmy, if I walked into a room now to look at the television, I would think I was seeing Delgado on the last kilometres of the stage and Roche in the early kilometres instead of the two of them at in or about the same point. It's interesting there that in the shots of the finish we saw a few minutes ago, there were umbrellas up. I don't know whether there's no sign of them out on the course here, but there were umbrellas up at the finish, which may indicate that there might be rain coming, which could be just the thing for our boy.
Yes, there could be rain, there could be anything. Let's not count anything, chickens or otherwise, until indeed the final peloton comes into the Champs-Élysées in Paris tomorrow. But this time trial coming as it does on the penultimate stage of the Tour de France. And look at the styles of the two men, the only two contenders realistically left. And there's no doubt, just from those pictures, Roche looking the man who's more comfortable in this particular discipline of Tour racing. Now, Stephen Roche, number 11. Pedro Delgado, number 51. I remember in the past that you were mentioning the Spaniards earlier on there, Bahamontes and Ocano, the only two Spaniards to win Tour de France. Ocano, when he won it, wore number 11, and so did Bernard Hinault, so it's by far from being an unlucky number.
It's not an unlucky number, but you must remember, Jimmy, I'm sitting here looking at this and I'm getting carried away because I think I see a dream coming true. But you have to remember that all Stephen Roche needs is one puncture. Just a puncture, a slow wheel change, lose 20 seconds. That'll put him 41 seconds down. A very slow wheel change, or some problem like that, the whole race could go out the window. So while it looks as if he could win, nothing is sure until the two riders have crossed the line.
The old Anquetil style, centre of the road, certainly reduces the risk of puncture to hug that centre. This is Andy Hampsten, big climbing star of the 7-Eleven team, an American from whom great things were expected. He had a very good tour last year, but couldn't quite repeat in 1987 Andy Hampsten coming in from the 7-11 team, and he was 4th in the Tour de France last year, but in this time trial he's 42nd. Andy Hampsten, number 191, the leader of 7-11. Well-backed American team. Back with Stephen Roche again. Dundrum, County Dublin, Ireland. Leader of Carrera. Winner Giro d'Italia, 1987. World bronze medalist in the past, 3rd in the past in Tour de France. And in fact, when you go back to his first professional season, 1981, Stephen left his calling card as early as then, because he won Paris-Nice in his first pro season, and he won the Tour of Corsica as well. He's no Johnny Come-Lately, that's for sure.
He's not. And here we see the two of them elbow to elbow. We can see the two riders together, although they can't see one another. They're 3 minutes apart on the road, but it does seem as if Delgado is settling down a little bit. His style is just that little bit better, possibly because at this stage the road might be rising a little bit more. It might just suit him, but he's settling in a bit more into them. Maybe he's got rid of those nerves that affected both of them in the early kilometres, but never mind that. Stephen Roche is sitting there and there's still no change in him. He's losing nothing. He's still riding perfectly.
And he certainly has the better position on the bike for breathing as well, because this can't be very good for the inhalation of Delgado, the amount of movement he's giving himself.
No, and then Delgado is leaning down very much, leaning down almost a little bit more than Roche, which just makes it that bit harder to breathe, because the cyclist position has to be a compromise between the least wind resistance, offering the smallest area to the wind, and also to make it easy to breathe, because his lungs must work as well as possible. They have to pump in as much oxygen into his bloodstream to turn those pedals.
8 times Roche and Delgado have met in time trials, and 8 times Stephen Roche has won. The biggest winning margin was 4 minutes and 7 seconds, and the narrowest margin was something around the 50-second mark. So it's 8-0, as they say in the statistics, so no reason why it should be any different today, as Roche goes to make it 9 out of 9. And there's not a movement, not a jolt. It's a marvellous style of Stephen Roche, as his mind and his utter concentration goes into something that Irish cyclists might have thought over the years was an impossibility, but now looks very much on, very much a probability. As we look at Luciano Loro from the CAS team, he was a big help indeed to Sean Kelly before Sean unfortunately had to leave. Luciano Loro at 53.47, and the countdown on the time for him. He was a big help also to Stephen Roche. Now, Roche would appear to be gone ahead on the road. We have no absolute confirmation on that, but at this stage it would appear he has gone ahead in Tour de France. It's certainly a magnificent time trial for Stephen. The style is still steady. The rhythm is magnificent, and it's really all about rhythm. It's not about a mad start and then running out of steam, or trying to keep something back and trying to be extra cute and then not being able to find it when you need it. It's about steady rhythm from start to finish, certainly over 38k.
Yes, and the news is that Stephen may be unofficially, that Stephen is leading in this stage by 15 seconds, which means that he's now overall only 6 seconds behind Delgado. But this is still a very tight battle. They have both to make themselves last. They've to not die on the hill when they get to the top of the last hill with 16 kilometres to go. They have to then come down the other side as fast as they can. But luckily enough, we've seen Stephen doing that. We saw him during the week leaving Delgado behind on the descent. So with any bit of luck now that they can't see one another, he'll leave him even further behind.
Having said all that, let's be fair to Pedro Delgado, because this man has contributed enormously to the enjoyment of this great cycle race in the past 3 weeks, but particularly in this last week. The leader of the PDM team, one of the world's great specialist climbers, he gave it everything and then a little bit more. Again, another finisher, Zadrogliak, over the 5th skibby's time is still surviving. As I was saying, Shay, Delgado has given it everything. He climbed superbly, and yet his best efforts weren't good enough to see off Roche, but he's never given up. And here he is, not by any means, not in the top 20, 30 time trialists in the world, but again giving it a great shot. And you've got to congratulate him, because without him, Stephen Roach by now would surely be clad in yellow, because there's no doubt Delgado has given it a great tour.
I'd be prepared to say that next week, Jimmy, but not today. Today I'm enjoying the luxury of seeing the impossible slowly becoming the possible in front of my eyes. Something that I thought would never happen is beginning to look possible. It hasn't happened. It'll be another 24 hours before we can say that it has happened. But it's beginning to look real now. And I don't think this is any day, to be fair to Delgado. Next week we'll enjoy the luxury of that.
Seamus O'Hanlon, 4 times winner of An Ross Tailteann, 26 times a stage winner, and one of the fine names in Irish cycling, as he says, referring back to some of the chats they used to have on the bikes and the stage starts and the stage finishes. Will one of us, will anybody, will somebody who succeeds us ever win the big one? Well, as he says, we're within sight of that. And there's a check time. There's the situation at 10 kilometres. Bernard, the best time at that. Look at the gap between Roach and Delgado. He has very nearly got it all back, Seamus.
2 more seconds and Roach is leader on the road.
Truly remarkable, truly remarkable. We thought he might do it, but tempting fate to say he certainly would do it. Who can say anything is for certain in this world? Just a reminder of the situation as we look again at a breakdown on the 10k times. Remember, it's a 38-kilometre time trial. The top 7 going into today. Laurent Fignon. He was 16 minutes and a bit behind. 2-time winner of Tour de France 1983-84. In 6th place was Fabio Parra, a Colombian from Sogamoso, a 27-year-old at 13 minutes. In 5th position, Luis Herrera at 7:14. 4th, Charlie Mote at 5:54. 3rd, Jean-Francois Bernard, who is putting in the best time in this time trial thus far. Then the man we're looking at, Stephen Roach, in 2nd place. Man in yellow, whom we will be seeing shortly again, Pedro Delgado. But without the split screen now, the story is being told right in front of our eyes, because it looks now as though there's only 1 second between them on general classification as Roach goes for the final famous yellow.
Remember, Jimmy, that Delgado is possibly getting information from bystanders on the road. He possibly knows that he has already lost 19 seconds. Possibly since that time check, he's lost the lead in the Tour de France. And this again has to discourage him.
9 men in the past have won the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. Not always in the same year. Only 4 have done it in the same year. For those 9 men who have accomplished the two in uneven or even years, Gino Bartelli, Foster Coppi, who did both in the same year, Charlie Gaulle, Hugo Koble, one of only 2 Swiss to win the Tour de France, Gastone Nencini, Felice Gimondi, Jacques Anquetil, Eddie Merckx, Bernard Hinault. Are we to have a top 10 of all time? It's looking like it as Roach goes for glory. Stephen Roach, we got the intermediate times there at 10 kilometres. He was second fastest to Bernard, but what's even more important, because Bernard was 4:18 behind starting this penultimate stage, Roach going very well indeed. Now Ramirez coming in, number 139, and again Skibby is going to survive. Yes, for Skibby, and that has got to be said, Seamus, is a very good time indeed.
The time is excellent when you consider the hill that there is in this course, the fact that it climbs steadily to a quite steep hill, and that these riders are doing times that wouldn't be nearly achieved in the home of time trialling, which is England, where they specialise in short distance time trialling on dual carriageways with large 40-foot trucks passing them by, and these riders are going about 25% faster than would be achieved over there.
We're watching Roach taking the line round this S-bend, this soft S-bend.
The shortest line at all stages in the race. He has to watch the line of the road and take the shortest way, cutting the corners from side to side. And also, if there's a crosswind, he's to consider staying close to that side and taking shelter from the wind from the banks or the trees.
Echeve just coming in there now, and he was a stage winner last Tuesday, but there's no break in this rhythm of Stephen Roach's. He still look extremely good, and he must know now that glory is within his sights. Of course, they've still got to go to Paris tomorrow, and people will be wondering about that, but of course tradition tells us, Seamus, that the last stage, all the issues are virtually decided then, and that's merely a celebration stage.
It would be very hard now. With a small difference of 10 or 20 seconds, it would be very hard for the second place rider to make that difference tomorrow. Lots of riders are hoping for a glory win on the Champs-Élysées. Others are just looking to preserve their position, and for these two men, if they were separated by a small gap, to change their relative positions would be nearly impossible, barring bad luck.
To look back through some of those who have held the famous yellow jersey on this tour, we've had 8 times it's been on the back of a Carrera man, Stephen Roach's team, but most of those have been taken by Eric Maekler. 7 times he had it, 1 time Stephen Roach had it. System U had 7 days in the yellow. Charlie Mote taking the bulk of those. PDM, 4 days. The man on the left of your screen, Pedro Delgado. There were a couple of Del Tongos away back. Do you recall those? Yeah, they were in it a couple of days too. Super Confex had a day. And Toshiba Look with Jean-Francois Bernard. Roach still looking extremely good as he goes chasing. He was 1 day in yellow, and on this particular tour he won a stage. You know when you have to go back to find a road stage, away back to the 10th of July, stage 10. But he won't be a bit worried about that.
He will not, Jimmy. But let's just think of somebody else today. Let's think of the man who blazed the trail, who opened the road, and the first person to leave this country and go to the continent, Shea Elliott. And I would say that if we could just look up there, we'd see Elliott sitting around with a few more cyclists looking at the television, or maybe he has direct vision himself, and saying, you know, this is the best day I've had since I came up here.
Shea Elliott, who won the yellow jersey Tour de France in 1963, to whom Shea O'Hanlon referred there. Sean Kelly wore it briefly in 1983. And let's also remember Sean Kelly, who has been for 4 years now the world's #1 cyclist, had that bad luck of having to drop out of the Tour of Spain when it looked as though he was almost a certain winner, and again had to drop out of this Tour de France. So really, with the slightest bit of luck, Irishmen could have won the top 3 tours in the world. And it now looks, after 18 kilometres, there's a change, and Roach has gone in front on the road. Seamus.
Yes, the gap at the moment unofficially is 41 seconds, which puts the positions totally reversed from, almost totally reversed from this morning. This morning, Delgado was 21 seconds up. Now it appears that on general classification, Roach is 20 seconds up. No let up in his rhythm. Look, he could be just in the first kilometre. He's sitting there, pedalling away. No effort. There is effort. The effort is really there, we know, but it just doesn't show it to the rest of us. Delgado is showing the effort. He's getting the time checks. He can see the clothes slipping off his back. Luckily, not literally.
We remember that final time trial in the Giro d'Italia when Dietrich Thuro had posted a 44 minutes 37 seconds, when Roach had to do it to prove himself, and that he did. 44 minutes 23 to consolidate his position then. For most of the journey in the Tour of Italy, Stephen was in yellow. For only 1 day on this tour has he been in yellow, but it doesn't matter how. It's what happens on the final day. It doesn't matter who has the yellow for 3.5 weeks. It's that final yellow that's buttoned on your back in Paris on the last day this time, July 26th, 1987. The man who earlier this year, indeed only a few short weeks ago, won the Giro d'Italia, looks to be on his way. He's now 20 seconds ahead. That's been confirmed. Roach is 20 seconds ahead of Delgado on general classification after 19 kilometres.
There are the first spectators, the first sizable group of spectators in the countryside. It's noticeable that there are no houses, very few people along this road. They're all concentrated further along on the hill.
Clark Rouquillon, 1984 world champion when the world championships were held in Barcelona. There's his time, 53 and a bit. You'll see it for yourself. Skibby survives at 50 minutes 47. There's Claude Rouquillon, the leader of Hitachi. 53.21, 34th best today. Average speed over 42 kilometers per hour. That's the scene down at the finish. Everybody waiting. The word will have been buzzed around from Tour Radio. Everybody will know now what's happening on the road. Lejarreta, what a very, very good tour he had. He was 5th in the 85 Giro, and this is a great time. He goes first. Lejarreta is the new leader on the stage. 50.45 to put Skibby down to 2nd place. And Lejarreta is the new leader on the stage. He went into this final stage in 10th place on GC. Now, here's the climb that Shea Elliott was referring to earlier on, coming towards the summit of that climb. But it's a relative climb after the Alps. But here we are coming up towards the summit of that now.
And it's interesting just to watch the reactions at the finish there. When Lejarreta finished, nobody really looked at him. Everybody is waiting to see these two men coming in. But at the moment, Stephen Roche at the last time check is 41 seconds ahead of Pedro Delgado.
Minus 21 leaves you 20. That's what he's ahead. Just a word about Lejarreta. We saw finishing. He won a stage in the Giro this year. He was 4th overall in the Tour of Italy. And, of course, he was the Spanish Tour winner in 1982. Look at how much happier our friend Delgado is when he's climbing.
He is, yes. He's settling down there now. He's back into his home country of roads that rise upwards. But I hope it's a hopeless battle for him.
Are those raindrops on the camera lens from out the course? It would appear so at this stage. Now it's another check. Great time of Jean-Francois Bernard. He looks to be he is the best time thus far. Roche 32 seconds behind him, and no sign of Delgado in the top 4. Now Mote was starting today in 4th position, 5 minutes 54 behind the leader, and Bernard 4:18. So no real danger from either of those, but the significant fact is Delgado has gone off the GC leaderboard, number 51, and now it can be confirmed Roche is leading the Tour de France. Delgado had a big quick start, perhaps threw everything into it, then didn't quite able to sustain that pace, that momentum, and Roche kept an even pace all the time, both on the climb now, and they're over halfway in this 38-kilometre time trial, and the rain has begun to fall.
Yes, Jimmy, but it looks that if Stephen can keep up this pressure to the finish, that he could come into the finish with nearly a minute and a half lead over Delgado, which would leave him starting tomorrow with a minute in his pocket, and that's as near positive as you can get. But then again, we haven't finished today yet. We shouldn't let the thing run away with us.
Alcala, the only Mexican in the Tour, very close to taking it over, wasn't he? I think it'll be the third best. Alcala, 3rd best of the day. Now, some of the questions that are asked on Times of Tour about jersey colours. Stephen Roche, as you know, won the I might have referred to it earlier on as a yellow, because we've been talking about nothing but Tour de France all week. Of course, it's pink, after the colour of the Gazzetta dello Sport, the newspaper in Italy. And indeed, the yellow jersey of France derives from the fact that the old paper that initiated the auto had used yellow paper. So they went for yellow, and the Italians, wanting to be different, went for the colour of their promoting paper. Therefore, the yellow in France, the pink in Italy. But Stephen is not too worried. The colours he has in his back at the moment are those of the Carrera, and the crowd, listen, getting really enthusiastic. Let's see if we can pick up some of that crowd. Yeah, there's a bit of a buzz around, all right.
But Jimmy, Stephen is coming near the top of the hill now. It can't be terribly far ahead, and when he gets there, all he has to do is pedal flat out, full speed down the other side. A small rise, and it's speed that counts from the top to the finish, and Stephen has got that speed. There's the banner in front, the top of the hill. We'll try and do a rough time check on Stephen coming to the line.
There it is, the Côte de Bolson, and Stephen Roche going for that final yellow jersey into Paris. I reckon he's now 29 seconds ahead on general classification. Delgado has given it everything. There's no doubt about that. He's not a time trial rider, but goodness, has he got really stuck into this today. Hopefully we'll get a visual check on Delgado's position. But there's a time check, and just look at it.
54 seconds, Jimmy. 54 seconds. That puts Stephen with a 33-second lead, and that's at 20 kilometres. It's a correction of the previous time check we got. But look at Delgado on the hill. It's his country, but he's out of the saddle, and you would think to look at him that he was in the Alps. Stephen rode so steadily up that hill as if it was almost flat, but Delgado could be back at the Alpe d'Huez.
Well, it looks for certain, unless this rain, and the rain is starting to fall down. Let's hope the tubular doesn't slip. Let's hope some silly spectator doesn't walk in front of somebody. But my goodness, what cycling fans these are. There's all sorts of estimates been given, but nobody really knows how many French people and others congregate around the roads of France for this great annual free show. Certainly they've had to make sacrifices, these people as well, to see great stars like Stephen Roche. And the rhythm, as you said earlier on, Seamus O'Hanlon, he looks the same now as he looked in the first kilometre.
He's there, just moves out slightly to clear as some spectators standing on the road, but he's flowing along the road. He's not forcing himself. Just contrast the pictures we saw earlier in the week of Laurent Fignon, a previous Tour winner, who's all over the bike, labouring away at it. Stephen is there, nothing is moving, just his legs, a very slight rock. The bike goes in a straight line. He's not putting any kilometres onto the distance of the time trial. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Now we're still on the hill with Delgado.
Yes, hopefully we can get a time check on that, but to make it reasonably accurate, we've got to get a visual check too on that banner. But here is Delgado, and he's an appreciable amount of time behind. He really is an amazing amount of time behind. It could be as much as 2 minutes indeed behind Stephen Roche on this particular stage.
The latest unofficial time check, Jimmy, is 1 minute and 6 seconds.
1 minute and 6 behind Stephen Roche. And there's the rhythm of a star in action. Stephen Roche, still around Dijon, where this time trial is taking place today. Roche over the top. And now,
look at the way he's turning that gear, Jimmy. He's probably on his top gear now, and he's twiddling it around as if it was his bottom gear, heading down for Dijon at full speed.
Huerte, twice second on stages this week. Very unlucky. Give Fignon a great run on one day and give his teammate Etcheverry a great run on another day. He too has a lot to remember from Tour de France '87. Not a time trialist, but not bad for a non-specialist. But all those, look at the faces, almost glum at the finish, because they're really almost dismissive to everybody else.
Yeah, the poor riders finishing are almost being ignored, because this is really a two-man race. And really, now that there's a little gap, I would like to take back what I said earlier. Now that there's a little bit more security for Stephen Roche, I do think that I should give back the credit I took away from Pedro Delgado, because really there's very little to choose between the two riders, and he has put up a terrific battle. It's just his bad luck that he met a better man. Here we come up to the banner at the top of the hill now.
Pedro Delgado, number 51, Stephen Roche in the inset. Tour de France between two men. Crowds as enthusiastic as ever over here.
It would give a gap of about 1 minute 10 seconds.
Yeah, there's certainly at least that much. We haven't got it official, but there's at least that much. So on the road, they could exchange those jerseys now. I don't suppose Pedro wants to wear Carrera, but he certainly could give the yellow to Stephen, who's now entitled to wear it.
He could, and I'm sure that the Spanish audience will be noticing today that the good man with the white wheel is being beaten by the bad man with the black wheel. The cowboys use hats, cyclists use wheels.
Pedro Delgado, 27-year-old from Segovia, Spain. Stephen Roche, 27 years old, Dublin, Ireland. The leader of the PDM team against the leader of the Carrera team. Yellow jersey for 4 days now for Delgado as the rain spatters down on these madly enthusiastic cycling fans. The older among them will remember the great names, the Burkses and the Hinos and the Ancatils, the Bobes and the Copies, and the Jansons and O'Connors and Bahamontes. But new stars are born every day, and they've had an Irishman in their sights now for a number of years, the great Sean Kelly. But if ever, Stephen Roche must have felt that he was slightly, ever so slightly, in the shadow of the great man from Carrick. That shadow has disappeared, surely.
If Stephen thought that, Jimmy, it would be that he'd be measured with the wrong ruler, because these are two completely different riders. I don't think it would be fair to say that one is better than the other. Sean Kelly has a tremendous talent for single stage classic races, but on top of that, he's a more than respectable. He's a super performer in the big tours, but not the greatest tour rider.
Here's one man who did prove himself in 1983 and 84, the best tour rider, Laurent Fignon, leader of System U, and coming in to take a position that certainly won't have him up very high, although 52.5 minutes is not bad for 38 kilometres. It's all relative, really, isn't it? Puts him 25th on the day. Laurent Fignon, who has won, this is his fourth tour. He finished and won two of them and didn't finish the other one. Here's a man, Stephen Roche, who is in his fifth tour, and he's finished them all, including being third way back when he also was third in the white jersey brigade, which is worn by the new professional, and he looks superb. He knows now he will have got the time checks. He knows that with every turn of the pedals, Seamus O'Hanlon, he is increasing his lead over Delgado. He's trying to close on Bernard, who had a good intermediate time there. What a day for Stephen Roche.
Confidence that things are working out in his favour, but he can't relax. From here to the finish, he can't sit back and say the race is won, I'm doing well. He's still got to ride flat out, and he's to be careful with the small amount of rain that's fallen, that the road could be just that little bit slippery.
Also, if it's raining and it holds there, will it hold any sort of foreign bodies like pieces of gravel and make some sort of danger of a puncture? Although one would have to surmise that if there is a puncture, it'll be the quickest biker wheel change in history.
I think it would. I think the way those cars are following him there's his team car, and I don't want to see it happening, but it would be fascinating to see how quickly he'd be back in action again. I think it would be quick. We wouldn't know he had punctured. He'd be back going again so quickly.
A recap on a tour that started on the 1st of July with a prologue won by Jelle Niedam of Super Conflex. Stage 1, Nico Verhoeven. Then we had Carrera winning the team time trial. A Casio de Silva from Sean Kelly's CAS team won stage 3. Herman Friesen won a stage. Then Marc Sargent, Christophe Levan. Then Bontempi won a stage, but he was disqualified, so that stage has now been given to Dominguez. Jean-Paul Van Poppel, the green jersey man, won stage 8. Adrie van der Poel, stage 9. Stage 10 was won by Stephen Roche. 11, Marshall Guyon, who also went into yellow that same evening. 12th of July, Davis Finney from America. Then Eric Brooking, the young Panasonic rider. Then the former Norwegian policeman, Dag Otto Lauritsen, the first ever Norwegian to win a tour stage in Tour de France. Rolf Goltz of Germany. Regis Clare winning the first of his 2 stages. He won one yesterday. Van Poppel winning his second one. Then Bernard. Then Delgado. Then Acheve. Then Fignon, Chausses, and yesterday Clear. And look at the dampness on the road. And that is now a new problem for Roche. Was cautious, wasn't it?
Cautiously he went around the corner. There's no point in falling when the race is within your grasp, when you can see where under the trees the road is still dry, but out in the open it's wet, and that's the worst time when the road is just freshly wet. But look at Delgado when we go back to him, Jimmy. He's there and he's not giving up. The race is slipping away from him, but he's fighting there, and every second that Roche gains, he'll have to take it. He'll have to fight for it.
I presume this is caution on Stephen's part, 100% caution rather than any discomfort.
Oh no, it's pure caution. I mean, it would be very foolish to prove yourself the greatest athlete in a race, but just not to be able to stay upright. He's got to stay upright. He's to make no mistakes.
5 miles to go. Roche about to go for yellow. The yellow jersey awaits him on the finishing podium, and there's the tricolour. Irish fans out here in their hundreds, certainly, lining the route in Dijon. People who will have memories forever.
From the top of this rise, Jimmy, it's downhill all the way to the finish. Quite steep early on, and then it levels out to a fall-in road. At the top of this hill, it's 6.5 kilometres to the finish. That's less than 5 miles.
A check back on some of the Roche lifetime highlights. Third in the world, 83. And, well, I don't know if you've actually got time to read those. But Stephen Roche, as we look at Charlie Motet, a one-time yellow jersey. And Lacharette still survives, but it's a good time for Motet, which makes him 5th on the day. Well done. You see the hard shell helmet on Charlie Motet. Great star of French cycling and of world cycling. Here is Roche.
It's fascinating, Jimmy, that the average speed for this stage is around about 27.5, 28 miles an hour, which is a fantastic time for such a hilly course.
Yeah, if you kept to the speed limits, you wouldn't do it in a car. Stephen Roche here, number 1-1. Is it that going to be, are we going to delete one of those ones and just have one?
I think,
or does the 1-1 stand for Giro d'Italia and Tour de France?
I think that's just about it. It's a pity that we can't add what should have been Sean Kelly's Tour of Spain in.
Let's not be greedy.
We are greedy.
A path to the continent to which Hanlon referred Shea Elliott earlier on. The great Shea, unlucky of course in the World Championship then, and unlucky, remember that famous tour when there was a hold-up in Andorra. However, that's of the past, of the present. Here's the man who carries on the tradition, Stephen Roche, and there's the time check with no Delgado on it. Roche behind, 1:24 behind Delgado. Don't get alarmed, Delgado was well behind Roche, almost 4 minutes starting the day. So coming towards the finish, and you notice that Stephen Roche may have even just given a little touch to the brake lever there. I think he's going for caution now.
Yes, but the road does seem to be dry at this point. It appears that there are showers in various areas, and he's got back onto the dry road, which is safe for him.
Bernard is almost 4 minutes behind on GC, so no danger there. The only danger was Delgado. Delgado cannot time trial to this level, but here he is, and has he given up? The answer is an emphatic no. What a marvellous man, Pedro Delgado, the leader of the PDM team.
I think, Jimmy, that at the moment Delgado looks even better than he did at the start. Now he's coming into that dangerous corner where we saw Stephen. He's coming in somewhat faster than Stephen, but he's made it around it.
Should be the odd bit of straw there that would have got wet in any movement at all, because those tubulars are ever so narrow. I mean, it's amazing that one can keep the balance at all on it. 8 kilometre sign there. We just got a quick glimpse of as Delgado goes chasing again on the descent here. Pity that the rain is spoiling it somewhat for the spectators and indeed for the cameraman's lens, but it doesn't stop watches, and the watches go relentlessly on. Here's Jean-Francois Bernard, and he should win the stage. He's put in a magnificent time trial today. Is he going to be better than Lacharette? The French love it. The man who's taking over from Hino, the leader this year of the Deschibaluk team, formerly Lave Claire, he's going to take the lead on the stage. 48.17, that is a magnificent time. Bernard already won a stage on this tour on the 19th of July, and here he is 7 days later, looking like another one.
Jimmy Bernard is finished and giving him a lead on the road of 3 minutes on Stephen Roche. It won't be long before Roche is safely home. He started 3 minutes behind Bernard. He'll finish a little bit more than 3 minutes behind him because Bernard is leading this stage, but no challenge to Roche, and we're soon going to be able to breathe again.
Stephen Roche. Remember those stories of just a couple of days when Stephen almost spent after La Plana, that great climb in pursuit of Delgado. The oxygen across his face, the oxygen depth in his body, recovering so quickly, his great recuperative powers, and here he is, or there he was, and soon he'll be again. as we look at Luis Herrera, the mountain climber, regarded by his fellow cyclists as the greatest mountain climber in the game, but was beaten on 2 out of 3 days in the Alps by Stephen Roche. Bernard's brilliant time trial, 48 minutes 17, and Luis Herrera gets a special round of applause for his 52.40, which for a mountain climber in a GT ain't bad.
It's very good, Jimmy, but did you notice there that Roche is 1 minute 11 seconds ahead of Delgado, that after losing time early in the stage, that Delgado has settled down now and he's not letting Stephen pull very hard, very far away from him at all. But it's too late for his comeback, because he'll never make up that gap of 1 minute and 11 seconds in the time he has left to him.
I think Stephen has now gone for caution over the last 8-9 kilometres in this. Delgado goes in pursuit though. The surface will be slippery around here again. Pedro Delgado in pursuit of Stephen Roche, the 2 main men in Tour de France 1987. Is Stephen going to get the final yellow in Paris tomorrow to go with the final yellow or the final pink he got in Italy? What a combination of colours it'll be in 1 year. Only 4 men, as we said before, have done it. Merckx, Anquetil, Kofi and Hino. 4 kilometres to go for Stephen Roche. Still looking absolute class from toe clip to brake lever and all points in between.
But Jimmy, we have to remember that while Stephen looks so comfortable on the bike there, he looks just the same as he did at the beginning. Right now, he's wondering, can he last out to the finish? He's wondering how much speed he can put on. His legs are burning. His throat is burning, he's breathing as hard as he can, and he's really under severe pressure at this time. But look at him, you'd never believe it.
I was just wondering there, when he was very cautious in that piece of rain in that very dangerous corner, was there also a little bit of maybe of loss of form? Only just slightly. It's all relative, of course.
No, it's just get to the finish faster than anyone else. That's the one thing he's thinking of, as fast as he can, faster than anyone.
Just less than a mile to go, about maybe a mile to go for Stephen Roche. And here's the kite, there you see it, coming up to the 1K to go. Stephen Roche is about to go into the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, and surely Seamus O'Hanlon, nothing can stop him now.
Anything could stop him, Jimmy, anything could stop him, but I don't think it will.
Well, he's trying to get as much time as he can, as much time in the bank. Roche holding the rhythm very well. It's been a beautiful time trial by a great TT man. Stephen Roche over 38 Ks, 24 miles or thereabouts in the Carrera team uniform. He was in green yesterday of points leader. He'd exchange that gladly any time for the yellow of overall leader. Very close to the finish now. Stephen Roche. There's the time of 48.17 for Bernard. He's not going to beat Bernard's time, but that's of no significance really about the stage. He won't be worried about a mere stage. Stephen Roche is going to beat Pedro Delgado on time. He's going to have enough in the bank. And Roche is going to have a very good time. Second best of the day. Magic. Roche just over the 50 minutes. Second best. 50.02. Oh, that's a tremendous one, and Delgado will not be able to make that. And if he does, by some remarkable chance, make it Seamus O'Hanlon, he should change his speciality from mountain climbing to TT.
If he could do that, he could change his specialty to miracle working. I think it's only a miracle can save Delgado now. Jimmy, I think we're just watching history happening before our eyes.
Well, let's talk about tomorrow now. People will be worried. They're always worried when they have their fingers crossed for someone they like a lot, like Stephen Roche. The Paris is really a celebration ride tomorrow. There'll be no time. It's never done. It was once, I think, when Janssen won it, but that was a time trial finish.
It was, Jimmy. I would think that, barring the most unusual bad luck, I would think that Stephen safely has this race in his pocket. They've a long transfer up to Paris, and then the stage from the outskirts of the city right into the centre of the city and round about. And I see it more as a glory day than anything. But let's see how much lead Stephen will have at the finish.
One man has gone in front But he really is, in his own way, the flagship, the flag bike for Irish cycling, because the whole sport in this country will rejoice. But this man has never given up. And when great battlers are told about years to come, this man is surely going to be in the forefront of it. He has never, ever handed up the white flag. Magnificent Tour de France for Pedro Delgado. And he's worn the yellow jersey with a great deal of honour. The most famous garment in the sport.
That clock, Jimmy, is at 48:53 now. At 15 minutes and 22 seconds, Delgado will have lost the jersey. Wherever he is when that clock hits, 50 minutes and 22 seconds. That's how far behind Stephen Roche he is on general classification.
Delgado has increased his speed over these final couple of kilometres, trying to keep the deficit down. Could it be that in his mind he has still not given up? The great ones never do, of course, whatever the sport. Bernard's time is 48:17. He looks, well, he certainly is going to win the stage. Jean-Francois Bernard, he's going to be the third man in the 1987 Tour to win 2 stages. Van Poppel took 2, Clare took 2, Bernard took 2, even though there's still a man on the road, and he won't beat him clearly, as you can see from the time. So good and well done, Jean-Francois Bernard. But now Roche is certainly going to be in yellow tomorrow. But what a great last 3 kilometres this has been by Delgado. Truly magnificent. Here's the kite.
There's the kite, and he has 24 seconds to go. Everything after that 24 seconds is lost time for Pedro Delgado.
50 minutes and 2 seconds was Roche. So he's slower than Roche now, but the time, the break-off time is 22 on those moving seconds. Remember that when it goes to 22, he's caught him. He's passed him. Roche is leading officially the Tour de France of 1987. Would you ever have believed it, Seamus?
I don't. I just find it hard to credit Jimmy. But it's great to have lived to see it. And it's great to know that we have 2 people like Sean Kelly and Stephen Roche, and that without putting too much pressure on them, we could see the same again in the future from them.
Delgado coming in to the finish, and he has battled magnificently. He truly has battled magnificently, trying to break the 51 minutes. He just won't do it. 51:02.
1 minute and 1 second he's lost. That gives Stephen Roche a lead of 40 seconds in the Tour de France going into the last day.
Well, there you are. Stephen Roche is in yellow, and it probably is all over now bar the shouting. The smallest margin in history was 38 seconds by Janssen in 68. There was a 48 seconds in 77, but Roche is now in the lead. Those times are just run-down times from the television at the end, but we'll be able to check them there for you again. Delgado at 2:45, Roche at 1:44, so a minute and 1 second is 61 less 21 is 40 seconds. Stephen Roche will be in the yellow jersey tomorrow by a margin of 40 seconds. An incredible day as we look at the stage winner, Jean-Francois Bernard, the leader of Toshiba, the man the French expect to take over from Bernard Hinault. It's a big responsibility for this young man, but he's a great all-rounder. He's proved himself great on the descents, a good climber, an excellent time trialist, and the smile as he takes his floral tribute for his second Tour de France win. Jean-Francois Bernard there, stage winner today. Now, shortly they should be getting the principals up there on the podium. Bernard, clad in the combine jersey, which shows that he's the leader in all categories in which he is not the actual outright leader. There's a little piece of every jersey in that, the Technicolor multicolored jersey. Jean-Francois Bernard of France. He is the Tour stage winner today, 25-year-old. He won 11 races last year and has had a very good 1987 as well. It's his second Tour de France. Well, I think Shea O'Hanlon was a bit overcome there, never thinking he'd see the day. But Seamus, it's just 24 hours away.
It's 24 hours away, and isn't it a luxury, Jimmy, that we've seen a ride like this from Bernard, that he's won the stage, he's done something super, but we don't really want to look at him. We're just sitting here, we're waiting to see Stephen Roche come up here and get that yellow jersey.
Well, he's just swamped at the moment with reporters, microphones, television cameras, EFP units. They're all there from all over the world. Bernard, though, is a very good one, and certainly one for the future. Nice picture there of a happy man, Jean-Francois Bernard. Second in the Tour of Romandie last year, third in the Grand Prix de Nation last year, and second in Paris-Nice this year, behind Sean Kelly.
But we must just give one thought to Pedro Delgado today, because the only way for a hero to look good is to have good opposition, and there's the hero.
The moment we've waited on. 1 day to go in Tour de France, and an Irishman wears the yellow jersey. Stephen Roche, who surely now will be called, not just in cycling, but in any sport you care to mention, the #1 Irish competitor of all time. 40 seconds is the margin over Delgado. There's one stage to go in the Tour de France of 1987. It's Roche from Delgado from Bernard. It's just 40 seconds, but 40 seconds should be enough now on the celebration ride to the Champs-Élysées tomorrow afternoon, the capital of France, and an Irishman who lives just outside that capital, Paris, about to become the first Irishman ever to win the greatest bike race on earth, the Tour de France. Stephen Roche in the yellow, and it's in the yellow he will go into Paris tomorrow. Stephen Roche, what a year for him. Tour of Valencia, Tour of Romandie, Giro d'Italia, and now 1 day away from the Tour de France.
Well, there it is, your commentators, Jimmy McGee and the former cycling great Shay O'Hanlon. And all our congratulations there to Stephen Roche, and we certainly look forward to tomorrow. I informed you earlier that items in the programme are being recorded and deferred. We have racing from Ascot, the 2 races we recorded, which we'll be showing to you. But right now, let me just give you some rugby news. And the New Zealand All Blacks have confirmed the position as the world's #1 team when they beat Australia 30 points to 16 today. The Australians led 6-3 at half-time, but a series of mistakes in the second half proved costly. The All Blacks' awesome rugby machine capitalised on every error, with hooker Sean Fitzgerald helping himself to 2 tries. Craig Green and John Kirwan also scored tries, while Australia's only try came from Brett Papworth in the second half. Well, right now, I believe we're going to have a commercial break, and we'll be right back with racing.